She had always lived a life of privilege. As the daughter of one of Lagos's most successful business tycoons, she knew nothing but wealth. Their mansion was a sprawling testament to her father's success, with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and staff at her beck and call. Every birthday was marked with extravagant celebrations, every holiday a trip to the world's most luxurious destinations. But for all the glamour, something deep inside Titi felt hollow. She didn't have to worry about the basics, food, shelter, or even friendship. Yet she found herself questioning the meaning of it all. Her friends, like her, were obsessed with designer clothes, fancy cars, and the best parties. But after a while, Titi realized that these things didn't satisfy her inner yearnings. It was at a school event that her life would change, as she met someone who would challenge her perception of happiness, love, and purpose. It was a Saturday afternoon when Titi attended her school's charity gala. The venue was a grand hotel in Victoria Island, filled with the elite of Lagos society. As she floated through the ballroom in her designer gown, Titi couldn't help but feel out of place. Everyone seemed to be playing a part, pretending to be someone they weren't. She was used to the glitz and glamour, but today it all felt meaningless. That's when she saw him, Chuka. He was standing in the corner, looking effortlessly comfortable in a simple white shirt and black pants. His calm demeanor set him apart from everyone else, and he didn't seem the least bit interested in the event's wealth and prestige. Unlike the boys Titi usually encountered, Chuka didn't try to impress her. Instead, they shared a simple, genuine conversation that left Titi feeling more connected than she had in years. There was something about him that intrigued her, and for the first time, she felt that her wealth might not be the key to her happiness. The following days passed in a blur, but Titi couldn't stop thinking about Chuka. He was unlike anyone she had ever met. While her life revolved around business meetings, expensive dinners, and high-profile parties, Chuka's life seemed simpler, rooted in values that Titi had never considered. They began to text regularly, discussing everything from music to books and philosophy. Titi was struck by how thoughtful and articulate he was, and slowly her perspective on life began to shift. Chuka didn't talk about wealth or status. He spoke about passion, purpose, and the importance of staying true to one's values. Titi found herself drawn to his grounded nature, and the more they spoke, the more she realized how disconnected she felt from her own world. Was this life of excess truly fulfilling? Or was there more to life than material possessions and outward appearances? Chuka's life seemed simpler, rooted in values that Titi had never considered. They began to text regularly, discussing everything from music to books and philosophy. Titi was struck by how thoughtful and articulate he was, and slowly, her perspective on life began to shift. As Titi's friendship with Chuka blossomed, the differences between their worlds became increasingly apparent. Titi's father, Mr. Adebayo, was a powerful business tycoon whose influence spanned industries from real estate to tech. Titi had grown up with every luxury imaginable, and she was expected to follow in her father's footsteps, inheriting the empire one day. But the more she spent time with Chuka, the more she realized that she didn't want to live a life driven solely by financial success. Chuka came from a much humbler background. He had grown up in a modest Lagos neighborhood, working hard to pay for his school fees and help support his family. He didn't aspire to own a billion-dollar company. Instead, his dreams were centered around becoming a social worker, helping those in need, and contributing to the community. As Titi tried to balance her life of luxury with her newfound friendship with Chuka, she couldn't help but feel torn between the two worlds. Titi found herself at a crossroads. On one hand, there was her father's world, a world of luxury, power, and influence. On the other hand, there was Chuka's world, one that was full of purpose and meaning but lacked the material comforts Titi had always known. As they spent more time together, Titi began to question whether money was really the key to happiness. She was surrounded by wealth, but she still felt unfulfilled. Could love, connection, and purpose bring her the peace she longed for? One evening, as they sat in a quiet cafe in Lekki, Titi asked Chuka what happiness meant to him. He looked thoughtful for a moment before answering. Happiness is knowing that you're living authentically, doing what you love, and contributing to the well-being of others. It's not about money or status. It's about finding purpose in everything you do. Titi stared at him, his words resonating deeply within her. She had never heard anyone speak about happiness in such a way, and it left her questioning everything she had been taught. The more Titi reflected on her conversations with Chuka, the more uncertain she became about her life. The tension between her privileged world and the life Chuka led was growing more difficult to ignore. Titi had always assumed that wealth was the ultimate measure of success, but Chuka's ideas were making her question that belief. Was she truly happy, or had she simply been conditioned to accept a life of luxury without questioning its worth? At a family gathering, Titi's father spoke passionately about the importance of building an empire and leaving a legacy for the next generation. He talked about the power and influence that came with wealth and how it could change the world. Titi listened, but for the first time she felt a disconnect. The words felt hollow, as if they were missing something vital. She glanced around the room, noticing the empty smiles of her relatives. Was this the life she wanted? A life defined by power and wealth, or one defined by love, purpose, and real connections? As weeks passed, Titi began to notice a shift in herself. She still enjoyed the luxuries her life provided, but she no longer felt as fulfilled by them. She started spending more time with Chuka, even accompanying him to local community events where he volunteered. She saw firsthand the difference he was making in people's lives. His efforts, though humble, had a profound impact on the people around him. Titi began to feel a deep sense of admiration for Chuka's commitment to his values and his ability to live authentically, without the need for external validation. One evening, as they walked along the beach in Lagos, Titi turned to Chuka and said, "I don't know if I can live this life of luxury anymore. It feels empty." Chuka smiled softly, understanding her struggle. "You don't have to choose between wealth and purpose. You just need to find a way to bring meaning into your life, no matter where you are." Titi looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. She realized then that the answer wasn't about rejecting her family's wealth, but finding a way to live in alignment with her values. She didn't have to sacrifice her happiness for material gain. One evening, as the moonlight bathed the city in a soft glow, Titi sat with Chuka at the same cafe where they had first talked. She had been carrying a heavy burden inside her for weeks. Titi had fallen in love with Chuka, and she could no longer deny the depth of her feelings. She had always known that love was complicated, but she had never imagined it would be this difficult. "Titi, is something wrong?" Chuka asked, noticing the change in her demeanour. Titi hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Chuka, I've never felt this way before, but I need to tell you something. I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Chuka looked at her, his expression softening. "Titi, I care about you too, but I want you to know that this isn't about money or status. It's about finding something real." Titi smiled, her heart racing. She knew that her journey was just beginning, but for the first time she felt hopeful. Love, purpose, and happiness were no longer just abstract concepts. They were the foundation of a life she was eager to build with Chuka. Titi's confession to Chuka had set something in motion within her. While she felt a sense of relief after sharing her feelings, the pressure from her family started to weigh heavily on her. Her father had always been clear about his vision for her future. She was to be the heir to the Adebayo empire. Every conversation she had with him revolved around business, wealth, and legacy. Titi's mother, too, constantly reminded her of the importance of maintaining the family's prestigious reputation. Titi found herself torn between her family's expectations and her own desires. She couldn't shake off the feeling that her father's dreams for her were not her own. She had tried to speak to him about the things she had learned from Chuka, about the importance of love, purpose, and giving back. But her father was unsympathetic. "You're destined for greatness, Titi. Don't waste that for some idealistic notions," he had said. His words echoed in her mind, making her doubt herself. Was she ready to defy her family for a future with Chuka?
As Titi spent more time with Chuka, she began to witness the stark contrast between his life and hers. While she had attended the most exclusive schools, sat in the finest restaurants, and wore the latest fashion, Chuka had lived a life of hard work and modest living. He didn't care for labels or luxury. He was more concerned with the impact he could make on people's lives. One afternoon, Chuka invited Titi to join him in a volunteer project he was running for underprivileged children in Lagos. They spent the day teaching, playing, and distributing food to families in need. The experience left Titi with a profound sense of purpose, and she couldn't help but notice the joy and fulfillment on Chuka's face as he helped others. For the first time, she realized how disconnected she had been from the realities of life for many Nigerians. Chuka had found purpose in serving others, something she had never considered before. As Titi returned home after the volunteer project, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had felt more alive in that small community center than she ever had at any gala or business meeting her father had taken her to. She thought about Chuka and his ideals, and how, despite his humble background, he had found peace in a life of purpose. But the very next day, her father invited her to a lavish charity event for a new project his company was launching. It was everything Titi had grown up with: high society, influential people, and promises of wealth and success. Her father asked her to attend, not only as his daughter, but as a key figure in the next generation of the business. She knew that her presence would boost the event's credibility, and she could see the excitement in her father's eyes as he made his request. Titi hesitated, but agreed, knowing that she couldn't avoid these duties forever. The charity event was a resounding success, and Titi's role in the evening did not go unnoticed. She wore an elegant red gown that turned heads and greeted all the right people. But, as the night wore on, Titi found herself feeling more and more disconnected from the glitzy conversations around her. She sat at a table, listening to a group of successful entrepreneurs talk about mergers, investments, and acquisitions. She was supposed to be proud of the life she was leading, but the words felt empty to her now. Her phone buzzed in her purse, and Titi excused herself to check the message. It was from Chuka, who simply asked, "How's the event?" Titi smiled softly, feeling a pang of longing for the simple life she had shared with him just days earlier. She replied quickly, "It's great, but I miss the real conversation, Chuka, the ones that matter." His response was almost immediate. "You don't have to stay in a world that doesn't fulfill you, Titi. You deserve more than this." His words struck a chord deep within her. Could she truly walk away from everything her father had worked for? The following week, Titi faced the hardest decision of her life. Her father was pleased with her involvement in the event, and he spoke about the future with excitement. "You're going to be a force to reckon with in the business world, Titi," he said, his voice full of pride. "This is your legacy." But Titi's heart ached. She had always respected her father's hard work and his vision, but now she felt suffocated by it. The idea of following in his footsteps no longer felt like her dream. She yearned for something more, something real, something rooted in love and purpose, not just in wealth and influence. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about Chuka. He was everything her father wasn't, humble, kind, and driven by a desire to make a difference. Titi knew she couldn't keep living a life dictated by her family's expectations. She had to decide whether to follow her heart and live her own life, or to continue the path her father had laid out for her. Titi decided to speak to her father. She knew the conversation wouldn't be easy, but it was one she had to have. She sat down with him the next morning, nervously fidgeting with the edges of her skirt. "Dad," she began, "I've been thinking a lot about my future lately, and I think I want to do something different, something that's true to me." Her father looked at her, a faint frown appearing on his face. "What are you talking about, Titi? You've been groomed for this. You're the future of this family's legacy." "I know, Dad," Titi said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I don't think I can just live this life anymore. I want to make a difference, help people, find purpose. I don't want to just inherit a business empire. I want to live a life that matters." Her father's expression hardened, and for a moment there was silence between them. "I don't understand, Titi. This is your destiny." Titi stood up, her heart racing. "I know it's your dream, Dad, but it's not mine." With that, Titi walked away, unsure of what her father's reaction would be, but she knew she had taken the first step toward living her truth. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Titi's conversation with her father had not gone as she hoped. He was disappointed, and their relationship felt strained. Yet, Titi knew that she had made the right choice. She felt lighter, more aligned with her values and desires. Chuka was there for her, supporting her decision, even as her family struggled to understand it. He encouraged her to pursue the things that brought her joy, whether that meant volunteering, working with communities, or simply exploring the world beyond business and wealth. With Chuka by her side, Titi started to envision a future where her happiness wasn't measured by money or status, but by the difference she could make in the lives of others. Her journey wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in her life, Titi felt she was on the right path. After Titi's conversation with her father, the days at home became uncomfortable. Mr. Olamide Adebayo no longer spoke to her with the same pride he once had. The bustling mansion felt quieter, as if the air had thickened with unspoken words. Her mother tried to be supportive, but even she couldn't hide her concern. "Titi, are you sure about this? You've always been our hope for the future of the business," her mother had asked, her voice filled with worry. Titi felt a deep sense of guilt weighing on her. She had always admired her father's work ethic and the sacrifices he had made to create a life of comfort for her, but she knew that the life she was living wasn't the one she wanted. The tension at home made her second-guess her decision. But whenever she thought of Chuka's words, she felt reassured that she was on the right path. Determined to stay true to her beliefs, Titi threw herself into her new life. She began attending community events, volunteering at local shelters, and participating in youth empowerment programs. The more time she spent with people who were driven by purpose rather than material gain, the more she realized how disconnected her world had been from reality. She made friends who didn't care about her last name, who loved her for who she was, not for her father's money. Her relationship with Chuka continued to deepen. They spent weekends together working on projects, planning events and discussing ways they could help people in their community. Titi's life had become more meaningful in the past few months than it had in her entire existence. She found joy in small moments like teaching children at the community centre or helping organise charity drives. As the weeks passed, Titi's resolve grew stronger. But there was still one conversation she knew was inevitable.
a final confrontation with her father. She had hoped the distance between them would heal, but it hadn't. One afternoon, she approached him in his office, where he was seated at his desk, staring at papers. His stern face softened a little when he saw her, but the tension remained. "Dad, we need to talk," Titi said, her voice steady but uncertain. Mr. Adebayo looked at her and nodded, motioning for her to sit. "I don't want to fight anymore. I respect everything you've done for this family, but I need you to understand why I've chosen this path." She explained how she felt, how empty the world of wealth had seemed, and how important it was for her to live a life filled with love, purpose, and service. Her father listened quietly, but there was no sign of acceptance in his eyes. After a long pause, he simply said, "You're making a mistake, Titi, but I can't stop you." It wasn't the resolution she had hoped for, but it was a step forward. For the first time in weeks, Titi felt a sense of relief. She had said her piece, and now, the ball was in her father's court. With her relationship with her father at a standstill, Titi turned her focus to her own growth. She began attending workshops, learning about social entrepreneurship, and seeking out opportunities that aligned with her values. She learned that there was so much more to life than what she had known. Chuka introduced her to the world of social causes, showing her how people, despite their limited resources, were creating change in their communities. Titi also became increasingly involved in starting her own small initiative, focused on providing education to underprivileged children. She was no longer living just for herself. Her purpose now extended to making a difference in the lives of others. This shift gave her a sense of fulfillment that the business empire could never have provided. With each passing day, Titi found herself growing more independent and self-assured. She no longer measured her worth by the size of her father's bank account or the brand of her clothes. Instead, she found value in her actions and the lives she touched. Chuka stood by her every step of the way, and their bond grew deeper with each shared experience. One day, as they walked along the Lagos coastline, Titi said, "Chuka, I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know this is where I'm supposed to be." Chuka smiled and squeezed her hand. "The future isn't about what we've been taught. It's about what we create together." Just as Titi was beginning to feel secure in her new life, her father's company faced a major financial setback. The media was all over the story, and her father's reputation was on the line. Titi couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, knowing that her decision to distance herself from the family business had only added to the pressure. Her father, once the pillar of strength in their family, seemed defeated. Titi went to him, wanting to offer support, but he was too proud to ask for it. Their conversations became few and far between. Titi realized that this was a pivotal moment, not just for her family, but for her own journey. Her father's empire was crumbling, but it didn't mean her world had to fall apart too. With her father's business at risk, Titi decided to step in and help. She reached out to some of her newfound contacts, including those from the social initiatives she had been working with, and suggested ways to revamp his company's public image by highlighting the company's contributions to community welfare. It wasn't the kind of work her father had ever envisioned for her, but Titi knew it was the right thing. Her plan worked, slowly turning the company's reputation around. Through this experience, Titi learned the importance of using her influence for good, not just for business success, but for the welfare of the people around her. Her relationship with her father began to heal as he saw the value in her approach, though they remained on different paths. As Titi continued to help with the family business, she also kept her passion for social causes alive. She founded her own NGO focused on youth empowerment and education, something that allowed her to blend her father's influence with her own values. The initial struggle was real, as her family remained hesitant about her choices, but Titi was determined to prove that she could make an impact without compromising who she was. Meanwhile, Chuka remained her unwavering support, his presence grounding her during the ups and downs. Together they envisioned a world where both business and purpose could coexist, proving that success wasn't measured by the wealth one accumulated, but by the difference one made. The more time Titi spent with Chuka, the clearer it became that they were meant to share a life. Her old world of wealth and luxury had no allure left for her, but Chuka's simple yet fulfilling way of life had captured her heart. One evening, as they stood together on a rooftop overlooking Lagos, Chuka turned to her. "Titi, whatever happens, just know that we've built something real here, something that will last." Titi smiled and kissed him gently. "I know, and I want to build it with you, with purpose, with love, and with the understanding that happiness isn't about what we have, but what we give." Titi's life had come full circle. She had discovered the balance between family, wealth, and purpose. Though her father's empire still loomed over her, she now knew that her happiness didn't depend on it. Instead, her happiness came from her work, her passion, and the people she chose to surround herself with. With Chuka by her side, Titi embraced the future with open arms. She had found her true calling, not in the business world but in serving others. She was ready to make a lasting impact, both in her community and in the world at large. Together, they began building a life that was rooted in love, purpose, and the belief that true happiness comes from living authentically. And in that, Titi found her peace.